In the old walls of Glasgow, it is not echoes of the past that resound, but voices of the future. And when Grace Thornton hears her own voice among them, there is no choice left. The Echo Chamber. The rain had not stopped all day. Glasgow, washed down to its stone foundation, looked like a ghost city. Empty streets gleamed with the reflections of lamps, and every sound dissolved in the monotonous hiss of water. Grace Thornton, an acoustician by profession and an obsessed researcher by nature, stopped before a Victorian building at the crossing of two alleys. It looked as if time itself had forgotten it. Flaking stucco, locked windows streaked by rain, and a plaque so faded its letters could no longer be read. Grace lifted her gear, portable recorder, sensitive microphone, spectrum analyzer, and stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and damp. Floorboards creaked under her steps, as if the walls themselves were listening. She switched on the equipment to capture the natural background of the building. For the first few minutes, nothing unusual, just cable crackle and the faint echo of her own steps. Then, on the spectrogram, a line appeared, an elusive frequency that should not have been there. Grace froze. A whisper entered her headphones. Voices, as if trapped inside the stonework, seeped through time. She could make out phrases, fragments of dialogue, but the words were strange, alien to that century. Check it. Scroll. Upgrade. Slang of the 21st century, as if teenagers were speaking from deep within the walls. She remembered lectures on quartz inclusions in sandstone, the very stone Glasgow was built from. Such crystalline structures could hold vibrations for decades. But this was something more. The stone was not vibrating in rhythm with what had been spoken, but with what had yet to be. Grace adjusted sensitivity. The sounds grew clearer, and a chill raced along her spine. These could not be remnants of the past, too modern, too recognizable. The voices sounded like warnings, echoes of what was yet to come. Grace jotted a new term in her notebook, Harmonic Key, the condition under which a building opened and began to speak. Suddenly, the recording warped, and through the swarm of noise, a new voice broke through. Clear, low, near. It spoke a word she did not know, as if from another language or another time where she had not yet lived. Grace tore off the headphones. The building was silent, but the device still recorded vibrations. The stones were speaking, and now she knew. If stone could remember words, it could also hold a warning. The next morning, Grace stood before the old city theater. Long closed for restoration, it loomed like a stubborn ghost of its age. Columns cracked, portico charred, doors bound with iron. Locals whispered that voices were heard at night, though the place was empty. To her, it was the perfect object, an acoustic chest that might hold more than echo. Inside, dusk ruled. Dust rose with each step. Rows of seats sagged under faded velvet, the stage veiled by a torn curtain. Grace set microphones at different levels to catch every reflection of sound. She started the analyzer and listened. Only a low hum, the breath of emptiness. Then something shifted. A thin line appeared on the screen, a resonant frequency. Grace adjusted the filter, and faint murmurs filled her ears, first incoherent, like the rustle of leaves. Then, words. Young voices laughing, talking over each other. "Did you screenshot it?" "Yeah, we'll upload it tomorrow. Make it go viral." She almost dropped the recorder. Such slang could not belong to the 19th century. It sounded as if the building caught voices from a time yet to come. Not remnants of the past, but scraps of the future. She raised the volume and noticed something unsettling. Amid the laughter, someone said distinctly, "Sunday at noon." It landed like a marker, a countdown. A cough echoed from the corner. Grace startled. There stood Moira, the elderly archivist of the theater. She had long known of Grace's research, and with a faint smile she said, "These walls always whispered." Legends told of a counter-prayer in the cathedral, words strong enough to silence any echo. She turned back to the headphones, and now two layers overlapped. One, the same laughter, the warning of noon. The other, contradicting it, nothing will happen. She switched everything off. The theater sank into silence again, yet inside her grew the sense that the future was not one. The stones spoke in contradictions, and those were more dangerous than prophecy itself. A few days later, Grace returned to her old university campus. At its center stood the library, built of dark sandstone, always filled with resonant quiet. Guards said sound wandered on its own here. For Grace, it was the chance to test her theory. If the theater captured not the past, but the future, the same should manifest here. She placed equipment among massive shelves. The buzz of old wiring mingled with the echo of her steps. Minutes passed with nothing but rain tapping glass and pages fluttering in draft. Then the spectrogram flickered. Around 17 hertz, a resonance rose. She leaned closer and caught voices. "Soon it'll all catch fire. The wires won't hold. We need to get out." They were clear, like students speaking in the next room. Another peak appeared at 13.2 kilohertz. She noted quartz veins in sandstone create stable peaks at 13.2 kilohertz and 18 hertz. Moira appeared, carrying books. Hearing the alien voice from the headphones, she pressed a hand to her lips. "I heard that. You were right." For the first time, Grace did not carry the evidence alone. She tuned further. Another layer emerged, fainter but audible. "All is calm. Nothing will happen." Two scenarios, one building, one predicted disaster, the other safety. A week later, the campus shook with news. A fire in the dormitory nearby. Faulty wiring, the building gutted, several students injured. Headlines echoed almost word for word what she had heard. Alone in her lab, Grace replayed the recording. Now she faced a choice: keep this knowledge to herself or warn the world of what the stones spoke. But who would believe? And if buildings held multiple futures, which was the truth? Grace knew it was time to stop working blind. Theater and library proved the phenomenon, but its nature still slipped away. In her lab, a wall of charts grew, resonance lines, peaks, notes on building materials. Slowly, a rule emerged, almost formula. Harmonic Key equals high-frequency peak about 13.2 kilohertz, plus infrasound about 18 hertz, plus structure, sandstone, oak, or metal. When these aligned, a building opened. She mapped the results across the city. A network appeared. Theaters, libraries, factories, the cathedral. Glasgow looked like an acoustic organism, each building a vital organ. Testing the formula led her to a clockmaker's workshop. Wooden walls, iron beams, the perfect match. She spun the generator through frequencies. The air trembled and voices flooded her headphones. "Grace, you must listen. Soon. On the 12th. No, the 19th. She dropped her pencil. The voices knew her name. And they named different dates, not one future, but many, branching. Moira arrived with a document from Cathedral archives. On faded pages, Resonantia Custodis, resonance of the keeper. Builders believed the cathedral held what could destroy the city, she said, but the price was always there. Grace returned to the tapes. The voices argued, predicting conflicting outcomes, but always speaking her name. The phenomenon was no longer abstract. It stared directly at her, pulling her future into its equation. The Harmonic Key had not just unlocked stone. It had opened a door where past and future clashed, and now they called her by name. Grace felt her experiments pushing to the edge. The simple formula could no longer explain everything. On her city map, she noticed crossings, points where resonance lines overlapped. Theaters and factories, cathedral and library. Patterns, as if Glasgow itself had been designed as an instrument. She chose an old textile mill where two keys converged. Equipment on the floor, generator sweeping frequencies. At 13.2 kilohertz, the screen flared. At 18 hertz, another spike. Then suddenly the signal cut through with perfect clarity. Voices appeared instantly, not of past or present, pure, without static, as if sounding from inside time itself. "We are not yet born, but soon we will be. Save us, or we will never exist." Grace clutched the headphones. These were voices of the unborn, generations yet to come. Their chorus painted two images of the city, one aflame, collapsing, people fleeing. The other, calm, streets untroubled, rhythm steady. Two futures coexisting. Moira, standing with her, spoke softly. "In the cathedral, there is a way, a counter-frequency. If resonance joins with a human voice, the chain can be broken. But remember, whoever becomes the bearer of the counter-signal disappears from the echo." Grace knew her choice drew near. The unborn voices haunted her. You must decide. For the first time, she understood her voice might be more than witness. It could be the key to change the city. Her search culminated at the cathedral towering above Glasgow. By day, it was a monument. To Grace, an acoustic vault. Stone arches, stained glass, spire reaching skyward, all built as if to capture and hold sound. This time, she brought everything. The nave would serve as waveguide. The plan was simple to describe, deadly to attempt. Feed 13.2 kilohertz and 18 hertz into the building, then overlay her own voice with phase inversion. The counter-signal might sever the chain, but at what cost? The generator started. The walls thrummed. The familiar chorus swelled in her headphones. Then a timbre rose, faint at first, then clear. her own voice. Grace, midnight on the 23rd. Password silentem fractum. Only that. The voice of her future self, repeating the phrase, exact time, clear key. The echo grew, 2 tracks in conflict, one of fire and chaos, the other of calm nothingness. The cathedral trembled with contradiction. Grace stood in the center, microphone in hand, fingers shaking. Moira at the console. "Are you sure?" Moira asked. "It's my voice. It has to overwrite." Moira nodded, switched the system on, then left. Someone had to remain witness. Grace inhaled and spoke the password, laying it over the resonance. Waves collided, the cathedral filled with her voice, swelling to unbearable volume. The catastrophic track faltered and went dark. Only one layer remained. Her voice, sealed into stone. Moira climbed the cathedral steps as the vaults inside shook. She knew Grace had begun the resonance. The walls pulsed with a low drone, like a living organ. Moira stopped at the doorway. Inside, Grace stood small against the arches, surrounded by equipment. Her voice rolled through the nave, strong and clear. Silentem fractum. The phrase repeated, merging with the generator. Vibrations grew into a ringing that made stained glass quiver. Then, in an instant, everything peaked and fell silent. The silence was complete, almost tangible. Moira stepped in, but Grace did not answer. She stood motionless, as if her voice had sunk into the stone itself. The machines had gone dark. Recordings blank. Moira tried to catch a trace of signal. On the screen, a faint flicker. She bent to the headphones and heard the barest whisper, "The price is you." Then, silence. Final. No frequency, no voice, no echo. The cathedral was mute, as though it had never spoken. Moira walked outside. The city moved in its ordinary rhythm. Dawn, first footsteps, scent of coffee from cafe doors. No fire, no disaster. Everything intact. She understood. The loop had closed. The stones no longer received the future because Grace's voice had become the anchor, replacing the catastrophic echo, vanishing with it. Only Moira knew that silence was not emptiness, but proof, and that salvation always demands sacrifice.